My friend set me up at work and I made him regret it. Hi. My name is Rob, and I want to share a story that happened to me a couple years ago. It was a real nightmare, but now looking back I realized that it could have ended even worse. I've always considered myself a responsible person. I graduated from a prestigious university before a lot of my friends did. To be honest, I never took my studies lightly. On the contrary, I always wanted to get maximum knowledge and experience. That's probably why I managed to graduate with honors. I would not say that it was easy, but I am proud of what I have achieved. Right after university, I got a job at a large IT company. It was a real breakthrough for me at the time. The company was known for its innovative developments and high-quality standards. I was offered a position as a junior software testing specialist, and to be honest, it was my dream come true. I realized that I would have to study and work hard, but I had a chance to grow professionally. The first 6 months flew by unnoticed. The work turned out to be difficult, but interesting. I got used to the team, found a common language with my colleagues, and started to climb the career ladder. My work discipline and attention to detail did not go unnoticed, and soon I was transferred to a more responsible area of work. Everything was going great until my best friend Steve suggested I get involved in some new project. He said it would be cool, that we would make a lot of money and become real stars in our field. So I said yes. Who wouldn't? Steve and I had been friends for about 5 years at that point. We met at university, sat at the same desk in lectures, and studied for exams together. After graduation, we went to work for the same company, and we kept in touch. Sometimes I thought he was my brother, because our relationship had become so close. When Steve offered to participate in the project, I didn't hesitate for a second. We knew each other's strengths. He was an excellent programmer, and I was a good tester. Besides, the idea of the project seemed promising. We were going to create an application that would allow users to manage their finances right from their phones. Convenient, fast, secure, these were the words Steve used to describe our future product. We worked day and night, sometimes even sleeping in the office. Steve was responsible for programming, and I was in charge of testing and optimizing the code. Each of us performed our task as responsibly as possible, trying to do everything possible for the success of the project. The work was in full swing. We discussed every detail, argued about the best solutions, looked for ways to optimize. It was not easy, but it was a challenge that inspired us. We believed that we would create something unique that would help people have better control over their finances and make their lives easier. Sometimes, when work was running late, we would order pizza and take mini breaks right in the office. We'd joke around, share our plans for the future, dreaming about how our app would be a hit in the marketplace. These conversations kept us motivated and helped us stay focused. Finally, after several months of hard work, the day came for us to present our product to the company's management. We carefully prepared the materials, tested all possible scenarios of using the application. Steve created a beautiful presentation, and I set up a demo stand. Everything had to go perfectly. We were a little nervous before the presentation, but the confidence in our product was energizing. We knew we had put in our best effort and believed in success. But it turned out that the application contained a critical bug that made it simply stop working under certain conditions. It was frustrating, of course, but that's okay, I thought. We could fix the bug and introduce the product later. But then the real drama began. As soon as it became clear that the program had failed, the tension in the room rose dramatically. The company's management, expecting a brilliant result, started asking tough questions. Why was there such a mistake? How could we have allowed such a failure? Answers were needed immediately. Steve, who was usually confident and held his punches, suddenly became nervous. He began to look for someone to blame, and his gaze stopped on me. With each word, he grew more determined and more insistent. "It's because of you," he exclaimed, pointing his finger in my direction. "You missed that bug. You should have noticed it sooner." It was like I was struck by thunder. I couldn't believe my ears. I had tested the code so many times that I knew it by heart. Every line had been analyzed, every function tested. How could I have missed such a serious error? But Steve's words sounded convincing, and management was starting to listen to him. I mumbled that I had tested all the code, feeling the blood pounding in my temples. But my words were drowned out in the general noise. The executives looked at me with disbelief and disappointment. It felt like the whole world had collapsed on me at that moment. I stood there like a fool and didn't know what to say. I had done everything right. I had checked the code hundreds of times. But the worst was to come. A week later, I was summoned to the office of the head of the department and told that because of this error the project was being closed and I was being fired. All the blame was put on me, and Steve was unharmed. I was shocked. How could you do that to a friend? The news was a real blow to me. I sat in my boss's office, unable to utter a word. Inside, I was seething with rage mixed with a sense of helplessness. I had put so much time and effort into this project, and now everything was lost. Because of one man I considered my best friend. I was given 2 weeks to turn things over and leave the company. I silently packed my things and went home. My mind was spinning with thoughts of what to do next. How to live with this shame. How to start over. I spent a few days in complete despondency, not wanting to see or talk to anyone. But then I realized I couldn't let it go. I couldn't let Steve get away with it. He'd set me up, and I wasn't going to stand for it. I needed to restore my reputation and show everyone who was really to blame for this mistake. I started collecting evidence. I returned to the office late at night, when no one could see me, and started going through the archives. I found old versions of the code, correspondence with Steve. Steve where he admitted that the problem was in his part of the program. I put it all together neatly in one place and decided to take action. It took me several days. I analyzed every line of code, matching dates and events. Gradually the picture began to take shape. I saw that the error was indeed in the part of the program Steve was responsible for. But he had deliberately covered it up, putting the blame on me. With all the evidence collected, I felt ready for the next step. Now all I had to do was wait for the right moment to reveal the truth. The first thing I did was write a post on our internal company chat room. I laid out all the documents, showed that Steve was trying to cover up his mistake and blame it on me. The reaction was instantaneous. People started discussing the situation, many taking my side. The bosses were also interested in the case and decided to investigate. The chat literally exploded. Colleagues who had previously avoided me started writing messages with questions and expressions of support. Many of them had seen how hard I had worked on the project and could not believe that I could have made such a grave mistake. Gradually, the discussion turned to open condemnation of Steve. People wondered how he could do such a thing to a friend and colleague. The bosses, seeing the heat of passion, decided to intervene. They organized an emergency meeting attended by key team members and department heads. At this meeting, I presented all the evidence I had collected. I showed the correspondence and pointed out the specific lines of code where the mistake had been made. Steve tried to justify himself, but his arguments looked weak and unconvincing. The investigation lasted several days. During this time, I lived in constant tension, not knowing what the outcome would be. Finally, the outcome was announced. The management concluded that the mistake had indeed been made by Steve and that he had deliberately tried to cover it up by shifting the blame to me. The decision was unequivocal. Steve was fired and I was reinstated with an apology. That moment was a huge relief for me. I was able to resume my normal life again, knowing that my reputation had been restored. But along with the joy came bitterness. I had lost my best friend, someone I trusted completely. It was a hard lesson that taught me to be careful in choosing the people I trusted. A week later, Steve finally left the company. It turned out that he had long been covering up his mistakes and shifting the blame to others. This revelation shocked many in the company, including myself. I felt relieved, but angry at the same time. Why would he do such a thing? Why set up a friend? I had no answers to these questions. Perhaps fear of losing his job or a desire to preserve his reputation clouded his judgment. Maybe he just didn't realize how serious the consequences of his action would be. But one thing was clear: our friendship was over forever. Now I am working in another company, doing interesting projects and trying not to trust anyone blindly anymore. Lesson learned. Revenge was successful, but it left an unpleasant residue. I hope Steve realized that's not the way to do things. Friendships are too precious to be ruined over a mistake. Every day I remind myself that trust is not just a word, but the foundation of any relationship, whether personal or work. I now choose the people I work with more carefully and try to avoid such situations in the future. Life goes on, and it is important to learn from every failure, even if it may be painful.